Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. It's time for another recent reads. I just finished 2 books and guess what? I think from now on, I'm hoping to make 2 book recent reads. So basically the recent reads videos are going to be a bit shorter. It's better for me too because shorter videos are faster to process with my really basic laptop. But at the same time, I also have been having issues with my well, it's not exactly an issue, but my phone storage has been approaching its limits. So most of the time whenever I record a video, and I tend to record videos like really long videos, my phone will give me notification saying that the limit is approaching. So sometimes you would see me extending my arm towards the phone like this because I want to close the notification. Sometimes it is to adjust the brightness like this. I'm not really good at the whole lighting technical aspect of recording, and I kind of want the vibe to retain this way, so yeah. But anyway, I'm gonna have shorter recent reads going forward. So in this video I have 2 books. The first book was a book that I finished in 2024, my final book of 2024, and it will be this one. It's called Blueprint by Theresia Enzensberger. This book was originally written in German. It was translated to English by Lucy Jones. So this is a historical fiction. It is set in the 1920s in Germany. So basically a post-World War I Germany, which is going to be really relevant to the story. And it centers around this young woman named Louisa Schilling. So Louisa comes from a fairly privileged background. Her family has some money, and the main goal of Louisa in this book as a character is to pursue her passion in architecture. But the challenges that she faced in this book mostly stem from the fact that architecture at that time was a field very much dominated by men, and therefore it was really difficult for her to get the opportunities to get the education that she needs in order for her to become better in the fields that she is really passionate in. So she enrolls herself to the Bauhaus University in Weimar. And this book is divided into 2 parts. So the first part is set in the year 1920, and the second part is set in the year 1926. And the first part, it is set at the Weimar building in the Bauhaus building in Weimar. And then the second part of the novel is set in Dessau, where, if I'm not mistaken, the second in 1926 the second Bauhaus building was just built. So yeah, that's how this book is structured. I mentioned like the main plot line, like the main goal of the character Louisa in this book, but this book also has some I would say a couple of secondary plot lines concerning Louisa as well. So the second one is pretty much kind of about Louisa's gradual political awakenings as she slowly realizes what's going on in Germany at the time, politically and economically and all that. And because she comes from a fairly sheltered background, she is kind of ignorant. And in order for her to sort of acclimate herself to this new environment at the university, where she ends up meeting a lot of people her age from different places, many of these students, her fellow students, are much more better informed when it comes to the politics and the societal issues that were going on, that were really important in Germany at the time. And she was just kind of lost. And in order for her to kind of find her place among her friends, she would have to kind of slowly educate herself in order for her to realize what her place is in the society, and to a certain extent what her place is in the world. So another plot line kind of concerns her romantic relationships with some other characters in this book. And the romantic relationship part, I think it's kind of interesting, because the book does attempt to connect the romantic relationships with Louise's main goal in the story, related to her passion for architecture, and also her kind of like life education concerning political ideas. But at the same time, I think the romantic relationships in this book, they tend to get kind of melodramatic as well, which, in and of itself, it's not a bad thing. I like melodramatic stuff, but sometimes it can get melodramatic in a fairly isolated sense, which means that it is melodramatic, but it doesn't feel like the melodrama is very much connected with the other themes of this book. And sometimes I kind of wonder that maybe if the book is a little bit longer, maybe there will be more opportunities for the writer to flesh out the relationships much better. Another thing that I notice about this book is that sometimes certain subject matter is written in a way that feels strangely contemporary, as in strangely modern, the way me as a 21st century reader would find super familiar. I mean, the tone that is employed in order to describe certain issues, such as queer rights, women's rights, domestic violence, all of those topics. This book attempts to approach them in a way that is quite progressive. But the tone sounds very much like how it is written, as if the events are happening in the 21st century. Now, I just want to add a disclaimer that I'm not sure how exactly the people in Germany in 1920s would have really reacted to these topics. I have a suspicion that there may be some differences, at least. There would be some noticeable differences that makes them makes their reaction, makes their experience feel different from how the experience today would have been. I also think that there may be going to be some differences, some experiences that will be the same as how the experiences today are, but there is a certain part of me that feels kind of suspicious about how modern this book sounds like. So I'm just gonna leave it at that, because I honestly do not know how the writing really sounds in the original German, because I don't have the German copy. And also I don't really know much about how the people at the time would have been would have sounded like when they were kind of like discussing these topics or were involved in these discourses concerning these these subjects. But overall, I think that the plot is crafted quite nicely. Aside from some of the aspects that I mentioned earlier, I thought that this book is it's an okay book. I gave this one 3 out of 5 stars, and honestly, I'm interested in reading more from Enzensberger. And I think she has other novels as well, if I'm not mistaken, but I'm not sure if they were translated into English. I could read them in German, but for sure it's going to be like really difficult to find German books in Malaysia. Anyway, yep, my last book for 2024. So moving on to my first book in 2025. I got this really slim one right here. This is called Heatwave by Victor Jestin, and the author is from France. This book was originally written in French, translated into English by Sam Taylor. And this book is set in modern day France, specifically in this place called Londres, where we have our character, Leonard. He is vacationing with his family. Leonard is a 17-year-old teenage boy, and their vacation is coming to an end. So basically on the final day, or something like the second to the last day of the vacation, or Leonard is at the beach. So the place where they're vacationing is kind of like this beachside area. So Leonard was at the beach, and then it was night, and he saw another teenage boy at the beach. And this teenage boy, his name is Oscar, is kind of like in this suspicious position. Like, he has this rope around his neck, like it's some kind of noose. And then Leonard sees that this boy Oscar is kind of like choking, or choked by the rope. It looks like Oscar is possibly committing suicide or something like that. But Leonard does not do anything. Like, Leonard just looks at Oscar, and then Oscar just kind of like notices that someone sees him. But then eventually, because Leonard does not do anything, Oscar just kind of slumps and dies. So after this, after Oscar dies, Leonard just pretty much kind of goes into this state of daze and panic. He immediately buries Oscar at the beach. And the novel just sort of takes off from there. And much of what we're seeing in this novel is pretty much what's going on in Leonard's head, with the knowledge that he just buried someone of his age, and without anyone else knowing that someone has died. And he is in this constant state of alarm and panic, and at the same time he is also kind of confused about certain things. Like he is just feeling so disorientated somewhat. He is still able to function. He is still able to communicate with his family, and also with friends that he meets there. But overall, he's just in this kind of like in a state of functional confusion, I would say. At the same time, there is also this kind of heat wave that was happening at the area, and the heat just sort of makes things even worse, because it becomes unbearable, people get irritable, and it gets really uncomfortable and all that. While all of this is happening, Leonard is also trying to get with a girl that Oscar has been seeing. And there's also another exploration of that this book goes in deeper level, which concerns more about I would say, the sexual exploration by teenagers. And I feel like all of these things, they are all kind of tied together by this common theme of confusion and disorientation. While I was reading this book, I could feel like I was in the main character's head, and there's certainly this feeling of claustrophobia, this feeling of helplessness, but at the same time it's just kind of absurd at the same time, because things that were happening in this book just kind of like, it makes sense, but it also doesn't make sense because of how confusing things feel, and how uncomfortable everything just is. And so I think, in terms of setting the atmosphere, this book is quite effective. I personally enjoy how this book just kind of ties all of those aspects, like the experience, the teenagehood experience, and possibly crossing the border towards adulthood. Like, we have our main character, a 17-year-old boy, soon to be 18, soon to be in his 20s. So there's definitely that aspect of, crossing over to adulthood. We also have this kind of like physical manifestation of this overall sense of discomfort through the through the weather, the climate, the heat wave. And then we also have this kind of like almost absurd happening in which this teenage boy just kind of buries another teenage boy and not tell any soul about it. So I thought this book is quite interesting in that sense. Like, so many things are happening in here. And I also like the fact that the author does not explain so much about why Leonard does the things that he does. It just describes the action to us, and just kind of lets us interpret what's going on in this book. And I personally kind of appreciate that. Yeah, so I gave this one 4 out of 5 stars. It's a pretty nice book. I was quite surprised by it. I actually originally picked it up because that week, which was like this past week, I was very much busy with finishing up my thesis, and I just wanted a little bit of motivation in the form of finishing a book, because finishing a book usually gives me this kind of a rush of motivation. So I just chose this without expecting much, and I thought it was an interesting experience reading this. Anyway, yep, I definitely recommend you guys to try both of the books that I mentioned in this video if you have not done so. But let me know if you have read any of these books, and if you have any thoughts about them. Anyway, those are all the books I want to talk about in this video. So before I end this video, I just kind of want to mention a little bit about like what I'm currently reading right now. I'm not going to mention every book because I actually have like more than 15 books in my currently reading list, but I am reading this book at the moment. This is called Our Spoons Came from Woolworths by Barbara Comyns. I got this book after I submitted the final draft of my thesis, and I was like, yes! I haven't defended yet, but, you know, I got something done. So I sort of celebrated by getting this book, and I think I'm about halfway into this book. I think it's kind of interesting. I actually read like a bit of it when I had the e-copy before, but I'm just not really into reading e-books these days because of the strain that my eyes have looking at the screen, and so I got the physical copy, and I think it's quite interesting. Yeah. Anyway, that's all I'm gonna talk about in this video. I'll see you again in a different one. So until then, take care. Thanks for watching, and bye bye.